They made me sit outside in the rain at my own sister's wedding while strangers laughed and my parents pretended I did not exist. I was wearing a cheap dress they chose for me while they praised my sister like a queen. Everyone thought my husband was poor and useless, but they had no idea that the quiet man standing beside me would destroy the groom's entire career before the night was over. Stay with this story because what happened next shocked the whole wedding hall and changed my life forever. My name is Emily Carter and I grew up believing family was everything. I was born in Ohio in a small town where everyone knew each other, and secrets never stayed hidden. From the outside my family looked perfect. A respected father, a loving mother, a beautiful younger sister named Jessica, and me, the older daughter who was always expected to sacrifice. From childhood I learned one simple rule. Jessica came first. If there was one slice of cake left, it was for her. If there was one new dress, it was for her. If someone had to stay quiet, it was always me. My parents never said they loved her more. They showed it every single day. I studied hard. I worked part-time. I paid my own college fees, while my parents paid for Jessica to attend a private university. They called it investment. I called it favoritism. When I met Daniel, my husband, everything changed. Daniel was calm, soft-spoken, and never tried to impress anyone. He wore simple clothes, drove an old car, and never talked about money. My parents decided instantly that he was not good enough. They did not know that Daniel came from a wealthy family. They did not know he owned multiple companies. They did not know because Daniel believed respect should come before wealth. We got married quietly at a courthouse. No big ceremony. No family celebration. My parents barely showed up. My mother wore black as if attending a funeral. Welcome back to Revenge Water Official. If you are enjoying the content and want to support the journey, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support helps Revenge Water Official grow and bring you even better videos every single day. So join the family today by clicking subscribe, and thank you for being part of the team. A year later, my sister Jessica announced her wedding. Big venue, luxury decorations, a guest list full of powerful people. My parents were suddenly generous. They spent thousands. They smiled proudly. They told everyone this was the happiest day of their lives. I tried to be happy for my sister. I truly did. But deep inside I knew something bad was coming. On the wedding day the sky was gray. Heavy clouds hung low. The kind of weather that feels like a warning. When Daniel and I arrived, my mother looked at us like we were an inconvenience. She handed me a cheap dress and told me to change. It was wrinkled, 2 sizes too big, and clearly bought last minute. Jessica walked past me in a designer gown. She smirked. Not a word. Just a look that said I had already lost. Before the ceremony, my father pulled me aside. He said, "Emily, you will not sit with the family. People might get the wrong impression." I asked what impression. He replied that my husband looks poor. Those words burned deeper than any insult I had ever heard. They placed us outside under a small tent, far from the main hall. When the rain started, they did nothing. Guests stared. Some whispered. Some laughed. My mother walked past me without even making eye contact. My sister did not look back once. Daniel held my hand. He said nothing, but I felt his grip tighten. The groom, named Michael, was a rising star in the corporate world. Arrogant, loud, obsessed with status. He walked past Daniel and said, "Enjoy the free food while it lasts." Then he laughed. That was the moment everything changed. Daniel stood up slowly, his face calm, his voice steady. He made one phone call. Inside the wedding hall, speeches were about to begin. Music played. Champagne flowed. Nobody noticed when several men in suits entered quietly. They walked straight toward Michael. Within minutes, the groom turned pale. His smile vanished. Whispers spread like fire. The wedding stopped. I did not yet know that Michael had been involved in fraud. I did not know his company survived only because of Daniel's silent investment. I did not know that Daniel owned the firm that controlled Michael's contracts. All I knew was that my parents' faces drained of color. My sister started crying. And everyone finally looked at us. Daniel looked at me and said softly, "No one will ever humiliate you again." And for the first time in my life, I believed it. The rain kept falling outside the wedding tent, but inside the hall everything had gone silent. I could hear my own heartbeat as people stood frozen trying to understand why the groom was suddenly surrounded by strangers in dark suits. My parents rushed toward him, panic written across their faces. My mother kept asking what was happening, her voice shaking. No one answered her. Daniel stayed beside me, calm like a man who had already seen the ending of the story. He placed his jacket over my shoulders, shielding me from the cold rain and from the stairs. For the first time that day I felt protected. Inside the hall, Michael tried to laugh it off. He told the guests it was just a misunderstanding. But his hands were trembling. His confidence was gone. One of the men spoke quietly but clearly. The words fraud, breach of contract, and federal investigation floated through the room. Each word hit like thunder. Jessica screamed. She ran to my parents, crying, asking what was going on. My father looked at Daniel for the first time that day, truly looked at him. Fear replaced arrogance. The guests began whispering again. Phones came out. Videos were recorded. The perfect wedding turned into a public disaster. Michael was escorted out. His career ended before the vows were even spoken. The ceremony was canceled. The music stopped. The decorations meant nothing. My mother finally walked toward me. Her face pale. Her voice soft in a way I had never heard before. She asked, "Emily, what did your husband do?" Daniel answered before I could. He said, "I protected my wife." That sentence felt heavier than any apology I had ever wanted. The guests slowly began leaving. Some avoided eye contact. Others stared at us with new respect. A few whispered apologies as they passed. Jessica collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Her dream wedding ruined. Her future uncertain. I felt no joy in her pain. Only relief that I was no longer invisible. My parents asked us to come inside. They offered us seats at the family table. The same table they had denied me earlier. I looked at Daniel. He nodded gently. He said, "Only if Emily wants to." For the first time the choice was mine. I shook my head. I said no. We walked away together. Through the rain. Past the shattered decorations. Past the broken pride. In the car, Daniel finally told me everything. He explained how he had quietly invested in Michael's company years ago. How Michael never knew who the real owner was. How arrogance makes people careless. Daniel said he never planned revenge. But humiliation crossed a line. I cried. Not from sadness. From release. Years of silence left my body that night. The next morning my phone exploded with messages. Relatives apologizing. Friends asking questions. My parents calling repeatedly. I ignored them all. For the first time I chose peace. But the story was not over. Days later news broke. Michael was under investigation. His assets frozen. His name destroyed. Jessica moved back home. Her anger turned toward me. She blamed me for everything. My parents visited our house uninvited. They stood awkwardly in the living room. The same room they once refused to enter because they thought Daniel was poor. My father apologized. Not deeply. Not sincerely. But enough to prove fear changes people. My mother cried. She said she never realized how much she hurt me. I listened. Quietly. Then I spoke. I told them pain ignored does not disappear. It waits. Daniel stood beside me, silent support unwavering. I told them forgiveness is earned, not demanded. They left without answers. That night Daniel and I sat together watching the rain. He asked if I was okay. I smiled for the first time without effort. I said yes. Because I finally understood something important. I was never weak. I was just surrounded by people who benefited from my silence. And my silence was finally gone. Weeks passed after the wedding disaster, but the silence from my parents felt louder than their insults ever were. They stopped calling. Relatives stopped pretending nothing happened. The town whispered my name differently now. People who once ignored me suddenly smiled. People who laughed now nodded with respect. Not because of me. Because of Daniel. Daniel never enjoyed the attention. He continued waking up early. Drinking his plain coffee. Working quietly from his laptop. Power without noise. One evening there was a knock on our door. I already knew who it was before opening it. Jessica stood there alone. Her eyes swollen. Her confidence gone. She did not apologize. She accused. She said, "You ruined my life. You always wanted this. You were jealous. I listened. The old Emily would have cried. The old Emily would have begged. But I was not that girl anymore. I told her calmly, you ruined your own life when you treated me like nothing. I told her love built on arrogance never lasts. She laughed bitterly and walked away. Daniel watched quietly. Later he said, you handled that with strength. I believed him. Days later my mother fell sick. Stress, guilt, embarrassment. They blamed me again. My father called. He demanded we help. He demanded Daniel use his influence. Daniel looked at me and waited. Again the choice was mine. I said, we will help. But not for them. For ourselves. Daniel arranged proper medical care. No favors. No power games. When my parents realized Daniel was the reason, doctors responded quickly. Their tone changed. Respect replaced command. They invited us to dinner. Just us. No audience. At the table my mother finally broke. She admitted she always feared losing Jessica. So she pushed me away instead. I felt anger. But also clarity. I told her fear is not love. And control is not care. My father stayed silent. His pride shattered. I did not forgive them fully. But I released myself. Months passed. Daniel received awards. Invitations. Recognition. He declined most of them. One night he told me he was offered a major leadership position. Public role. Media attention. He asked what I wanted. I said I want a life where I am never made small again. He smiled. He accepted. The news spread quickly. The same people who mocked us now praised us. My parents suddenly wanted to brag. I stopped them. I told them my life is not your redemption story. Jessica moved away. She could not handle the reminders. As for Michael, the groom, his name faded. His power gone. His arrogance punished by his own actions. Sometimes people think revenge is loud. It is not. Real revenge is living well. With dignity. With peace. On our anniversary, Daniel took me back to the courthouse where we first married. Simple. Quiet. Honest. He held my hands and said I would choose you again even if I lost everything. I believed him. Because this time, I chose myself too. Time has a strange way of revealing truth. A year passed after the wedding scandal, and my life no longer looked like the one I once survived. Daniel and I moved to a quieter place near the coast. A home filled with light and silence. No shouting. No comparison. No fear. For the first time I woke up without anxiety. Without preparing myself to be ignored. I started writing. Late nights, early mornings. I wrote about pain. About silence. About daughters who grow strong because they have no other choice. Daniel encouraged me without pushing. He believed in me the way I always needed my parents to. My work slowly gained attention. People connected with my story. Women wrote to me saying they felt seen. That was my real victory. One afternoon my parents visited again. Older. Quieter. Smaller somehow. They did not ask for forgiveness. They did not demand respect. They simply sat and listened. My mother said if I could go back I would choose you differently. My father said I was blind. I did not cry. I did not argue. I said you chose how to treat me. And I chose how to live without that pain. They nodded. They finally understood. Jessica never returned. Some people are not meant to grow with you. And that is okay. At night Daniel and I walked by the ocean. The waves steady. Unapologetic. He asked me if I ever wished things had been different. I thought carefully. I said no. Because the girl who sat in the rain was born again that day. Not broken. Awakened. If I had been loved earlier I might never have learned my own strength. Daniel squeezed my hand. He said then everything happened exactly as it should. I looked at the horizon. Peace filled my chest. Somewhere out there people still believe power is money. That revenge is destruction. They are wrong. Power is knowing your worth. Revenge is walking away without hate. And sometimes the quiet husband everyone underestimates is the man who saves your life without raising his voice. This is not a story about humiliation. It is a story about becoming, and I finally became myself.